To finish out our 1 point perspective project practice, this will be the final version of our 1 point perspective, and you are going to be drawing the hallways of the school. For my virtual students, you'll have pictures on the Google Classroom that you can pick from. Classes in person obviously will be sitting in the hallways observing the hallways. So I'm just going to demonstrate a few things directly onto this picture so you can kind of get an idea of how to get started. So for drawing the hallways and doing it in a 1 point perspective sort of way, first thing you need to do is you need to find your floor lines and your ceiling lines. And it's a little bit tricky because the floor and the ceiling is not perfectly straight all the way down. It goes back and forth in a few locations, like you'll notice here to here is one section, but then back here it does kind of one of these, which is a little, different than you might expect it to do. But that's okay. We're just going to try and start with the front to back sort of direction and figure it out from there, adjust as needed. So for your hallway drawing, to find your vanishing point, if you were to do your floors corner to all the way to the end of the hall, and then your ceilings in a similar fashion, you will naturally find your vanishing point. Notice that lines up nice and neat. And I'm starting from the middle here just because it's hard for me to draw from the top corners with my iPad, but you get the picture. So right now, with those 4 lines, we've determined that our vanishing point is right here. That is a huge vanishing point, obviously. It's not really ideal to draw that darkly. So what you're going to want to do whenever you start yours is you're going to want to draw very light so that it's easier to erase later. Now with these guides in place, let's look at some cases. On your picture, you're going to have to do all of your lines to the vanishing point if they are lines that are horizontal. So for example, these bricks are horizontal. Like if you were looking dead on, like if you were standing right here looking, little guy, if you're standing right there looking at that wall, that would be horizontal. So these lines are going to go to the vanishing point. So you would use your ruler, line it up. Obviously, you don't have to draw all the way to the vanishing point. You can stop your line, back here whenever you reach the end of the wall. But everything like that needs to go to the vanishing point. Otherwise, everything else needs to be perfectly straight up and down. So that is where that wall ends. It needs to be straight up and down. If it's not straight up and down, it's going to make everything look tilted. So the easiest way that I do it is I get my ruler and I just kind of line it up with the edge of my paper and then scooch it in until it's where I need it on my paper. So what I would do to start blocking out your hallway first is do these major sections where like the hallway breaks off at little places where there's little like doorways. So like right here, this is the bathroom. And then back here, the hallway is its own little chunk right there. This side comes in a little bit too, like so. So you've got your hallway broken down into like the chunks that make it up all together. So once you have everything broken down like that, you'll notice that there are some spaces like this doorway right here. So if you look closely, you can see the wall here. Maybe I should make my brush a little bit smaller. This wall right here sticks out. So you end up with this sort of shape. So it tucks behind, just like with your buildings, it tucks behind the shape in front of it and then continues on down the hall. The door sticking out into the hallway may not be perfectly straight out. I'm, pretty sure the doors are hung relatively straight, but they're, not perfect. But it's going to stick out into the hallway like so. These doors will go to the vanishing point. This goes to the vanishing point. Vanishing point. Everything like that goes to the vanishing point. The sides of the doors straight up and down. This bathroom here, it's kind of hard to see, but it does the same thing as the wall on the other side. It goes in behind, and then there is the wall there. If that makes sense. Try to erase out some of this so you can see through it a little bit better. Boop, 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 boop. Okay. So the wall does tuck in. So you have like a little entrance that goes into that space there. Now obviously you can't trace your hallway. You're going to be visually looking at it. So this is just a little bit of a guideline, just showing you how it maps out, how you can look at the hallway and determine where your shapes need to be. Next thing, we are going to finish this drawing by shading it using the drawing pencils that you have. So shading in our case, and something I want you to really focus on, is that the presence of white in a picture. Oh, that's the wrong layer. So let me just give you a quick example of what it looks like whenever it's completely grayscale. Okay, so you will notice that the ceiling lights right here and the floors are the only things that I would consider to be white, truly white, and that is because they are emitting light, or the floor is just incredibly glossy, so it is completely perfectly reflecting that light. Also, the doors back here are white. Everything else in this picture has tone, has value, even if it's light. Like these bricks, you might be tempted looking at them to say, these bricks are white. They're just white bricks, which they are. They are white, what we would call white bricks, but they are not emitting light. They are not glowing. So therefore, they are going to have some value to them. They're going to be like a very light shading. You're going to be using something like probably your 2H on these walls. You're going to be using your hardest pencil to get your lightest value. Whereas something like these bricks right here, these are real dark. Or this door right here, very, very dark. You're going to want to use probably your 6B. You want to get it real dark in there and get that value really, really etched in. So what I'm trying to get across is your entire paper is going to be shaded except for very few spaces. Whenever you're shading, a good guideline is probably that you should have maybe 10% of your paper be white. That's the source of your light. And about 10% be as dark as it can get. And everything else should be a nice even spread of values in between to make a nice balanced composition. So when you get to that point, we'll talk a little bit more about shading. But at this point, I want you to focus on getting everything blocked out, getting your perspective lines figured out, finding your vanishing point, and then start actually drawing all the stuff in the hallway. The rule for this project is if you can see it, you must draw it. If there are people in the hallway, obviously don't draw the people, but everything else, signs, posters, light switches, cracks, anything that you see on there that is visible to you, you should draw it. I would recommend starting from the very back of the artwork and working your way forwards, just because if you start from the back, you're less likely to run out of room than if you start from the front and start drawing too big and then end up taking up all your space. So I would start in this picture. I'd probably start way back here with all those lockers on this portion. And then I'd work my way slowly forward. I would save your fine details for last, like these bricks on the front portion. That would absolutely be the end of my process right before I started shading, because if you draw all these lines and then you find something wrong and you have to erase it, that's going to be super obnoxious. So save that stuff for the end. If you have any questions, let me know, and I hope that this helps.